Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another video. In this one, I'm bringing you the RS200 Hillclimb car again. It's the next step. We haven't quite started it yet. As always, things went wrong. I'm behind schedule, but let's get on with it. I give you, oh, that almost worked. Oh, that's close, isn't it? The RS200. Here's one I made earlier. Got it in position, gave it a quick clean. Now, if you followed for a while, you would have seen episode 1 about this car and the build that we are undertaking. We're behind schedule, like I just said, but who cares? We got to get on with it at some point. Now's the right time. Just getting into winter, weather's getting, things are slowing down. So I figured now's a good time to get on with this because I've been absolutely off my head with minis everywhere doing wheelies. So now's a good time to have a good go at this, which is a proper car. Not saying the minis aren't, but this is a proper car. It's my favorite of them all. Right, so for today, to give you a quick what's coming up on today's episode, we're gonna move this car. That's it. We're gonna move the car. We're gonna move this car from this shop, which is the showroom, the studio, whatever you want to call it, the content space, into the workshop, which is where the magic actually happens. So we're going to move the car from here round to the other workshop, and then I'm going to take you through basically everything we've done up until this point in detail, so that once we start the actual build process, you haven't missed out on anything that we'd done previous to that. So the next step is fabrication, which is why it's going to the fab shop. But there's a lot of stuff we've already done up until now that you need to be caught up with so that you understand and it makes sense at the end when this car is complete. Basically, I went ahead and did half the car build without filming it. So I'm now gonna have to go back, show you everything we've done in detail, because in the first episode, I really brushed over everything about the car to bring you the history of the car and what it is. Now I'm gonna show you the detail that's gone into the car so far before the next episode will be the actual magic. Stay tuned. Let's get this moved outside to the other workshop, and then I'll start talking all this. What was that? What was that? That was like a drive shaft bolt there. Well, it's a part of it. Right, we broke something on the way out. A bolt fell out, I think.
Great start.
Yeah, I think there's no gearbox in the car, so the drive shafts are loose. So I think all that happens, one of the bolts came out. Anyway, car's outside for the first time in daylight for a very long time. I had to move a couple of cars before I could move this one. One of them, I'm not going to talk about, but I figured because today's going to be a lot of talking and not a lot of driving, may as well do some donuts quickly before it all gets too boring for you. So let's do some donuts first, shall we? Now that's put away. More about that later. You're probably wondering why, but I'm not going to tell you. And now I've got that out of my system, because obviously I feel much better now, because I didn't want to bring you a completely boring video that had no driving whatsoever, even though that was pretty driving. Should we get the car in the workshop? Let's go. Watch this struggle. Don't mind the clunking. That's just normal RS200 noises. Almost there. Right. This is where things might get interesting. When all you do is think I'm pushing the car around a yard. This could get interesting, we might crash. so as I briefly let onto, that is the Hillclimb RS200 moved from what is the content showroom into the workspace so we can actually do some work. So that I don't completely brush over it, because you're probably already wondering, a little bit of what's in here at the moment. So the RS200, the Rallycross RS200, the other one. Again, if you watch my channel, you'd have seen me driving this earlier on in the year, where unfortunately it went amazingly well. I was loving every second of it, and then I blew the engine up. I just blew the engine up on the RS200, so famous last words said to Steve, the mechanic, that actually, no, the cam belt was wondering at the start of it, and don't worry, it's nothing to worry about. And he said, I think there's a nick in the cam belt. I was like, no, I think it's fine. So it's not gone worse, it's fine. Well, we got to the first corner and it snapped the cam belt and it's destroyed the engine. So this car is in here for a full strip down, which is going to be based around an engine rebuild. We're also going to do a full rebuild at the same time this winter, whilst we piece together back the Hillclimb RS200 as well. So there's going to be two RS200s in here at the same time, which is pretty cool on its own. Being worked on, very different machines, but also very similar. At the same time, I won't talk to you too much about the Rallycross RS200, because that is its own feature on its own. Today is all about the Hillclimb car. In the other side, just because we're in here and you're going to see it, is a Zack Speed Mark II Escort. This is in the fabrication bay right now. So we've got a couple of chassis changes we need to make for the suspension, because we're developing the car all the time and Pat is out racing it all year long. So we've got a couple of changes we want to make to the chassis, hence it's in the fabrication bay. Very shortly, that will come out of there once it's finished. Once we strip down what we need to strip down with the Hillclimb RS200, it will swap places, it will go into the fabrication bay, and it will get under the knife. So what I want to do with you today is I want to go through, just because I think the car deserves it and I think you guys deserve to know, what we've already done with this car since the crash at Goodwood in 2018.
As we now look at Liam Doran, he was the fastest yesterday for the first 100 meters. He did it in 4.43 seconds. The man who has been Mr. Rallycross thinking sideways, he cannot go any quicker through the first right-hander. He got an X Games gold medal in the Los Angeles back in 2011. If anybody's committed, oh, and he's had a moment. The rear bodywork has come off. He lost his downforce, and that's put him into the bales, and he's come to an abrupt halt in front of the paddock.
Which was 7 years ago now. This car has not been back together properly since then. You know all this if you watched last episode. But in that time, obviously, we've done a little bit here and there. And I want to take you through everything we've done in detail that takes it to where it is today, so that when we start on it tomorrow, let's say, or the next episode, you're already caught up to speed, because I think there's enough on here that you'll be very interested in knowing about. So let's get the thing stripped down, all the panels off of it, so then I can really show you up the skirt of the bad boy. So the first thing, just while I'm taking it apart, to note is there's an awful lot of aero catches, which are these latches. Now, I probably already mentioned it in the last video, but this has gone flying off before at Shelsley Walsh. I was driving up the hill and that went flying off. And at Goodwood, not so long after, the back clam came off.
If anybody's committed, oh, no!
So yeah, there's latches everywhere right now, because there's no way I'm having anything fall off again. So yeah, we've already engineered a load more latches and catches into it to make it, well, hold itself together. My assistant today, my beautiful assistant today, is my wife, Andrea. If you're wondering who the heck is she, if you've not watched previous videos, you won't know, but if you have, you'll know. She's a paid model. Right, so, should I take the doors off? I think the doors will just come off as well, actually. Assistant, please hold the end. No, down. The beauty of this car and the way it's built and designed is because it's literally like a full race car. I mean, I could just set a tub off as well. That tub and the side skirts, they also just lift off. So it's literally a space frame chassis. That's how they are as standard. So yeah, it's pretty incredible just, you know, how a design actually puts things together. If you are watching this and you have any connections with any fuel companies, tool companies, these tools really aren't cutting it. These are like Aston's Christmas tools, or actually Andrea's Christmas tools. It's no good, people. So I really could use some tools. If you're watching and you know anyone, help me out. Right, so before I get into the full details of the cooling package and all the changes we've made from an original car, I actually think it would be quite cool to show you very basic stuff about what an RS200 is and what's different from a normal car. Because it's all well and good me showing you this crazy looking car and talking about this iconic car that is based around an RS200, but you need to understand really what makes it so crazy. So the very first thing to note is there is no engine in the front. So the car is super low, super wide, it's 4-wheel drive. But the main difference, or one of the big differences, is the engine is mid-mounted. So the engine's in the middle of the car and the gearbox in the front. So it's a transaxle in reverse. So front diff, the gearbox isn't in the car, but front diff in that gap there. I could show you one in that car, but front diff is in there. Gearbox is attached to the front diff. Gearbox finishes here. So where I use the gear, this car actually has got paddle shift, but a gear lever would normally come through the hole next to where my hand would be. So you've got front diff, gearbox, all in the front of the car, which obviously is kind of normal, but what's different is the engine's in the middle of the car. So the engine's here, which is not rear mounted, it's mid mounted because it's in front of the rear wheels. And then in the back here, which is in the car, down here you can see the rear diff is in the car. So you've got rear differential between the rear wheels, front differential between the front wheels, and then a gearbox in the front behind the diff, and engine in front of the rear diff. So everything is super compact in the middle of the car. The most important thing actually that makes this car crazy is the engine and how low down in the car is. Like the engine is below when I'm sat in the car, there's nothing above my armpits. When I sit in the car, I'm sat on the floor like a go-kart anyway, and the engine is lower than my armpits. Like everything in this car, if you look here, there to there, it's only just above the height of the wheels. So like, there's nothing in this car that's higher than the top of the wheels, which gives it a crazy, crazy low center of gravity, which means you can run the car soft and it doesn't have any body roll, which means you can get loads of grip and still have great stability. So super low center of gravity, super central weight packaging, gearbox, engines, all in the middle. I sit in the middle. There's no weight outside of the rear wheels or the front wheels. So basically, these things are all original design features of a Ford RS200. We've kept those amazing features, which makes the car as crazy as it is, and we've just evolved with technology, the aerodynamics, the grip, the suspension, the way the engine's controlled, the way the transmission's controlled, paddle shift, fresh air anti-lag, 13-inch wide rear tyres, you know, crazy modern dampers. We've just evolved the car, but the basics are still very original because these cars from factory were wild. So yeah, I just think it was important to show to you the basics of how the car is put together. This is still configured the same way as an RS200 would be because they're awesome from the factory. We've just taken this and gone absolutely next level crazy to make it faster. Now you know a little bit more about an RS200, let me get into the details of all the things we've made recently to make it better. So what I'm going to do now is, I'm going to talk to you about the main feature that we've done with the car since it happened is the cooling. But there's some other things. So I'll talk to you about the other things first before I get into the cooling stuff. AlliSport are a sponsor of the car and they've made all the cooling products, fluid transfer products, but I'll talk to you about that. The main thing on the back we've changed is what happened at Goodwood was the whole rear clamshell ripped off of the car.
If anybody's committed on the...
Now that's primarily because of the downforce created by the spoiler, just pushed down too hard on the bodywork. So we decided before that spoiler was mounted onto the rear clam. So the rear clam that I took off and carried over there, the spoiler fixed to that and it pushed it down and ripped it off. So what we decided to do is we decided to fabricate a chassis mount. So the spoiler now chassis mounts to the car, which I can probably leave this on for you because it will make a bit more sense then. So this spoiler now, which obviously creates a ton of downforce, now mounts to the chassis like that. So we can run the spoiler on the car without any bodywork on. So now any force, any downforce, this transfers into the chassis, now pushes directly down into the chassis and into the tires, thus giving us more grip. It doesn't push the bodywork down and flex and rip off and so on and so forth. Let's get into it now, the main thing. So the cooling package, we'll start with what's on the car. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna, actually no, I'm gonna show you the old stuff first. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get you the old stuff and show you what was on the car and then show you what we've made to put on the car, and I'm gonna explain to you why we've done that and the theory behind that. So I'm going to get these parts off of the car, first of all. So this is the new Intercooler, which we've got a nice workbench over here, which is another RS200. So we'll leave that there. We need this part. We'll talk about this in a moment. I'm just taking them all out of the way, and some of the stuff I'm not going to show you, I'll leave out of the way, and some of the stuff I will. Wiring and electrical is something that I'm going to come to at a later stage. I mentioned in the first episode that it is already done. It is already done to a point, but things have changed again in the last 5 years. So we're going to make changes, and Level Motorsport are going to step in, as they have done with everything I've been doing recently, and work on the wiring changes, but we'll come to that. That'll be a later episode. We're going to get all of the basics done first and come back to the wiring at a later stage. We're going to do this one step at a time because it's actually a lot to it. So we're going to show you, I've been trying to work out how I can best show you so you understand without talking for half an hour, and pictures are much easier to understand than words, is I'm just going to show you before and after. So I'm going to show you what we had on the car and what we've done to put on the car. So starting with water management or water cooling, obviously you have a radiator. In this car, the radiator mounts in the front of the car, and this is how it mounted. So it might not fit perfectly because you kind of get the point. It doesn't fit because we've changed things, but radiator mounted in the front, which is still in the front, but we struggled very much so with space because we wanted to have a bigger one, because especially when you're hill climbing and you get to altitude, it's very difficult to keep the car cool. So we wanted to have a larger volume of water, but we also needed much better airflow. So the original design, which is how an RS200 would have been with the radiator in the bumper like this, limits space and limits airflow. So old one out, still very nice, but old one. Time has moved on, technology moves on, ideas come up. This is the new one. As you can see, much larger, beautifully made by AlliSport. I'm going to say that a lot, but everything is beautifully made by AlliSport. This fits in here somewhere, like so, and sits like that. Now, you will have seen, or we can cut back to shots with the bonnet on, but basically what this allowed me to do is have a much larger surface area. So we haven't got a much bigger volume of water. What we have got is a much larger surface area of cooling space and a much better airflow management system. So the air is now going to go into the bumper through here, through the head, through the fog lights and through the bumper and through the opening in the front of the bonnet. I'm going to duct everything here into the radiator. So there'll be a much bigger catchment of air from the front of the car. It will then be flowed up to the air. The air will be flowed up to the face of the cooler, through the core of the cooler, and then out with using the Venturi effect that the bonnet has built into it as a standard RS200. It already had a Venturi sort of duct to draw air out. Using that again, but with a bigger space, the lip here will create a vacuum here, which will draw air out and take it away. So with no resistance whatsoever, because as you can see, with the bodywork on, you can see the whole core of the radiator, which basically means the air will just flow out as fast as it possibly can. So it's gonna be forced in at speed and out, essentially copying exactly a GT car. This would be like a Le Mans GT car style. No radiator fan, because the fan won't be needed. When we're in like a staging, like in a hill climb, you would stage, get the car warm, have tyre warmers on the car, and be in the line queue ready to do your run. We'll just have battery airflow, battery fans, which will just blow air at the radiator to keep it cool, so we can warm the car up, but not let the car overheat. Once we get to the start line, fans will go away, very much like Formula One. They do the same thing. And then it's over to natural airflow. As soon as you get away, the airspeed's always up because you're always going fast, and that keeps the car cool. It means you haven't got to carry a fan for extra weight, and it also, fans at speed restrict airflow. So when you're going super fast, the fan's actually slowing the airflow down, so it becomes a restrictor. So you want that gone. So radiator, air in through this massive core and back out. So that's the biggest change in the water cooling. You also see here the connections. It's all on Wiggins clips as well, so it's going to be beautifully put together when the final assembly comes. Next up, we've got air cooling. So we've sorted out cooling the water. Actually, sometimes what's more important is cooling the air. On this car, because it's turbocharged, and it's got a massive turbo, all of that creates heat. That then gets worse at altitude when you're climbing a mountain or climbing a hill. Not mountain climbing, it's hill climbing. When you're climbing a hill, the thinner the air, the harder it is to produce power, and thus the temperatures get even hotter. So cooling the air back down before it fires through the engine is essential. Now on an RS200, they're very, very unique. That this is, again, sorry, I should have explained. I'm doing before and after. This is the old one. So this, sat like that. And it might even sit, it does, wonderful. So very unique for an RS200. The intercooler is roof mounted. So if you ever wonder why this hood is up here, that's because the air travels over the roof, through the intercooler, and then out of the back of the hat. It's called a top hat on top of the car. That is what an RS200 had originally. This car obviously is kept much more original. This car has always run this, but what this does, which I don't like, is the weight of the intercooler very high up in the car, but also creates a lot of drag. This is like a wind stop, essentially. The air comes over here at 150 mile an hour, hits that, and it's like an anchor, or like a parachute, basically. That is, for me, the main reason why the whole rear clam came off the car before, because there was way too much resistance here. The air was hitting this, it created a pressure point and just lifted, ripped the top off, as well as the spoiler pushing down. It was like the whole pressure here up and pressure there down, just ripped the clam off the back. So I wanted to cure or solve both issues. Chassis mounted the spoiler to take the pressure off the back, and I'm completely getting rid of this, so there's no pressure point here at all. So this is the old intercooler, roof mounted. As you can see, very small for a car with such, like 1,000 horsepower, let's say. A car with 1,000 horsepower produced by one turbo, it requires a lot of air cooling because there's a lot of boost, and this just doesn't cut it. The biggest problem with this actually is not so much the surface area, well it is, but it's the depth. It's massively thick, like it's 6 inches, probably 150 mil thick, and really heavy. Now the problem with that is the surface area that air goes through is just that. So you can only fit that much air through, and by the time it gets to here, it's hot already. So it warms up here, and by the time it comes out the back, it's boiling hot. So the back of the core basically does nothing because the air that's cooling it already warmed up at the start. So you've got to go thinner and bigger surface area. In comes the new one. So this is probably my favorite part of the car build so far. This is absolutely beautiful. Like, again, made by AlliSport. I'm going to keep saying it. Sorry, it's not a paid ad, but they're magical with aluminum. So I have to name drop them because they deserve it, because this is just awesome. So this will mount like so. So the intercooler sits here now like this. And as you can see, from what I just told you, the surface area is huge. This surface area, compared to the old one, is like 10 times larger. It's massive. So the most important thing here is surface area. And the other thing I noted was depth. The core thickness is less than half as thick. So the air going through the intercooler comes out the other side, not hot yet. So the whole way the air travels through the core, it's cooling the air that it's cooling, because obviously air goes through, and one air cools the other air, basically. So the way I've designed it is the roof hat will still sit on top. We'll lower it down a lot more, so it will be very, very close, reducing the amount of drag that we have, and then we'll duct all of this air straight through the core, very much like the radiator in the front, and so we'll get a lot less drag, a lot better airflow with a much bigger surface area, so the air that does come through can pass through very easily and doesn't create a pressure point here. And then we'll just duct again the hot air out. Hot air exiting isn't always as important. We might have to run a fan on this, but it's going to be a bit of a challenge to duct the hot air out. This actually sits at a bit more of an angle like that. So the air will come in through the core and then out of the core and out. And then we'll have massive ducts in the back of the clamshell, which should draw, because again, at the back of a car, underneath the spoiler, there's a massive vacuum which creates downforce. That's drawing air out. So we'll have ducts coming out the back of the car, letting all this hot air from the engine and from the intercooler now out the back of the car to get the hot air back out. So again, this is all on Wiggins clamps to make sure everything's sealed nicely. I could probably go into a lot of details. This actually, if you look over that side, this goes directly onto the turbo like that. So this is directly to turbo mounted, so it clips straight onto the turbo. And then this side, I get the, trying to be as careful as I can with these parts. If I get the intake manifold, on this side, this will go, it's a bit of a piece in the puzzle together today, but I just really want to show you, we've done all this work prior to now, and I really want to show you what we've done, the effort we've made, before we get carried away with the other stuff and you miss out on this stuff we've done. So this sits here like this. So there's the intake manifold. The intercooler is now off, but as you saw, the hot air came into the intercooler on this side, straight in, through the core up, and then this will come straight out the top side and into here, which will then feed the engine. So it also reduces the distance the air travels, straight out of the turbo, straight across top of the engine, through the intercooler, and down into the intake manifold and into the engine. So one thing to note, actually, we haven't done yet, which we'll bring to you shortly, is this is the current throttle setup. So you have here 1, 2, 3. So essentially ITBs, individual throttle bodies. So there's one throttle per cylinder, 4-cylinder, 4 throttles. So on a Gen V motor, so it's fly-by-wire. So I got rid of all the cable effect. So it's electronic throttle. This controls the linkage, like so. But I've decided that since we did the cooling package of AlliSport, there's one change that I would like to make, and that is because I've learnt some stuff since then. Technology has moved on, and what I want to do now is I want to take all this away, because years gone by, we did the individual throttle bodies to get better throttle response. But what we've discovered is actually, with today's technology, the throttle response is not your friend, it's your enemy. So with this car, having 1,000 horsepower, and it runs 2.5 bar of boost, when I touch the throttle, these 4 throttles opening just a fraction amount give me instant power, instant boost, and it's almost uncontrollable. It's just too much, too aggressive. So the way to make this car faster is by making it smoother and calmer, because it's just a wild, wild animal. So what we're going to do is we're going to scrap this. We're going to go back to the conventional intake manifold, which would be 4 runners into one single throttle body. So it'll be, just a single throttle body, fly-by-wire throttle body still. Quite small, nothing too crazy, but what that does, it gives us more control, because when it opens a little bit, it only lets so much air in, so the instant rush of air isn't as aggressive and doesn't give you such a hard hit of boost and power. So try and make this car, well, milder. So this will change. This will go to 4 runners with this, and then it will go single throttle here, and the intercooler will feed it. So that's a change we've yet to make, but I have got it planned out. We kind of know what we're going to do. The cool thing about that is it will mean switching back to the original intake manifold. So going back to an original RS200 intake manifold, which is very cool, I think, because if we can keep anything original on the car, that's quite cool. So what we wanted to do, talking about oil first of all, is we had previously, this was the oil, the main engine oil tank, and then next to it had a breather tank. So this sat here and this sat next to it. So this tank breathed into this tank. 2 tanks, took up a lot of space, quite heavy and so on. What AlliSport did was they compacted those 2 tanks into one. So you've now got the main oil tank and the breather tanks mounted to the side of it. Meaning, from 2 tanks, we now have 1, much more compact, better surge management inside, but also lighter and takes up less space. Moving on to the cooling side of things, the water tanks, we used to have a swell pot and a header tank. So that was the header tank mounted above. So those two stacked above. The coolant came through, swelled out, took the air out, and this was the coolant header tank. So swell pot and header tank, 2 tanks. Again, AlliSport very neatly took those, you might have to come around here, took those 2 tanks and integrated them into one. So we now have a swell pot beneath the header tank. So the header tank feeds directly into the swell pot, meaning we achieve the same thing, but it's much more compact, much nicer and neater and lighter. So the aim of all this was to achieve better fluid management, saving weight and saving space, which as you can see there now, those 2 tanks, first of all, absolutely beautiful. I should probably have cleaned them a little bit better before now, but yeah, maybe we can find some shots of them when they were first made brand new, because this thing's been collecting dust. From 4 tanks to 2 tanks. So oil and coolant, a much better fluid management. The last tank at the back here is, well, I'm gonna have to show you this because it's beautiful, but power steering. So power steering mounts somewhere up here, I think, over here. So yeah, that's power steering tank, so that mounts up there. And that's for the power steering fluid to go into the tank or into the pump. This is the last thing I want to show you. And this is a thing of beauty. This is the air intake pipe. This goes over here onto the turbo, direct like that. First of all, note how big it is. It's massive, it's 4-inch straight in. But that goes straight onto the turbo, solid mounts there, keeps the air filter positioned so the air comes straight from the clam into the air filter and then directly feeds the turbo. So it keeps all of the turbo and the air management as neat and tidy as possible. But just look at that thing, like honestly, the quality is insane. Like that's no joke, that is no joke. There is loads more to it, especially the fluid management. This car's got water to oil coolers on the engine side and also on the gearbox side of things. So the gearbox oil and engine oil are both cooled by laminovers, which is oil passing over water rather than air over oil. They're very effective and also compact and can be packaged nicely. So they're underneath the car. We'll show you those at some point, but I'm not going to go too far into all of the tiny little details. I really just wanted to talk to you about the big changes we've made with intercooler, radiator, and oil tanks and coolant tanks, and how we've improved the design, basically before we get into the next stage of the build. So the next stage of the build now is taking this car, disassembling it more than I have today, taking it into the fabrication bay, and the first job we've got to do is mount all of those coolers. So as you can see, I was just holding stuff. Well, we made everything to fit in a gap, but at the time, it was all kind of flexible. So what we'll now do is all of the components have had mounts fitted to them. We'll now mount them onto the car. So we'll take tabs from the parts to the chassis and we'll chassis mount everything nicely. Ollie from Muzzle Fab is going to very kindly do that, as he does all the fabrication here. I'm looking forward to getting that part done because that will really take the car forward to the next level once that's all positioned exactly how we want it. And then we'll start working on ducts and stuff. I guess I could kind of talk to you a little bit about the detail of the car before we go too far into it. A lot of people were saying in the first episode, like, we want to see more of the car and what's cool about it. So one of the cool things is intake manifold. We're going to get to that because that's be one of the things we're going to make. So we'll talk to you about it when we make it. But one of the things we won't really change because it's already done is over here, something that's quite advanced for the RS200 because it's much, much more modern from a current WRC car, is this pipe here and this valve here. This is our fresh air anti-lag system. So this is a small valve which takes air from the intercooler under here. So this mounted to the intercooler that you saw sat up here. This takes air from the intercooler and puts it into the exhaust. So basically what that does is the turbo makes pressure, fills the intercooler up. When I close my throttle, I don't then want the air to go through the engine anymore. But what that does, that stalls the turbo. So what this does is, this allows the boost that's produced in the intercooler. So the intercooler gets filled full of boost, makes a bunch of pressure, you close the throttle, it has nowhere to go. So instead of it stalling the turbo, what this does, it lets the air go into this pipe from the intercooler, through this valve, and then it's fed, if you come over, you'll see, it's fed from this valve, like a spider, into the 4 branches of the exhaust manifold. That feeds the air into the exhaust manifold and then back around the turbo. So essentially, it's a bypass for the engine. The air's built, it makes boost in through the air filter, produces the boost into the intercooler, through this pipe, into this valve, into the exhaust manifold, through the turbine on the turbo and out the exhaust. So essentially that can all keep spinning full speed, even when I've closed the throttle on the intake manifold. So the engine will slow down, but the turbo keeps spinning. That is the most modern and advanced way of anti-lag to keep the turbo spinning. This car already runs that. It's something I fitted prior to my big crash, I guess. So that won't change, that's already there. There's lots and lots of things that are going to be changed with the technology side of things to make the car better and easier to drive. It's already got a fly-by-wire throttle, fresh air anti-lag, all these things, but there's a lot more technology that's moved on now that we can use to help me as a driver control this absolute monster. Traction control, all these sorts of things will be going on to it. So I think that pretty much covers it for now. The next stage, like I said, is going to be taking it apart, getting it in there, starting to cut things, weld things, get all the cooling package mounted, finish off the chassis mounted spoiler, get some more mounts for panels and stuff. And then once we've done that, we'll be taking the car apart and painting it. And then once it's painted, go for final assembly. So you will be seeing episodes coming up. There'll be a fabrication episode where we'll do all of the fabrications, get everything ready, which so you'll see it all. Basically, we'll build the car complete. So it'll almost look like it's ready to go. Then we'll probably do the wiring, get all the wiring finished, and your level motorsport will get involved. And then you'll see there'll be an episode about just the wiring and the technology that's going into this car. And then I think what we'll probably try and do is my aspiration is to try and test the car. So once we've got the car all fabbed, all put together, all wired and plumbed and everything done, we'll test the car before we paint it. We'll completely test the car to make sure that all of the ideas we've had and we put into this car have actually worked. Once we know they've worked and we haven't got to cut things apart and so on afterwards, we'll then come back into the workshop, do a full strip down, and then we'll start from scratch. We'll powder coat everything, we'll paint the chassis, make everything look beautiful, we'll anodize all the aluminium, and then we'll go for final assembly. So hopefully 2026, this bad boy will be going up to Hillclimb in the EU. Right, thank you very much for watching this one. It's been awesome having you. The RS200s are crazy. I hope you're enjoying the RS200 content. I hope you love them and are excited by them as much as I am, because as you can tell, they're my favorite. As always, please subscribe if you haven't, it really helps. Hit the notification button so you get a bell when I post a video. Like the video, comment, let me know what you thought. Do you like the RS200s or do you want to see more mini stuff? I really do read them, so let me know what you thought. Thank you very much. See you in the next one.